Hey everyone, my name is 𝗙𝗶𝗱 and I am a business coach for authors over at 𝗙𝗂𝗋𝗲𝗀𝒀𝒀𝒀𝒀𝒀𝒀 and today I want to talk to you guys about why it is time to stop chasing readers and start attracting them. So what do I mean by this? What do I mean when I say stop chasing readers, start attracting them in? So I want to circle back to when I first started out in authorship, which was oh my gosh, back in 2016. So that's 6 or 7 years ago now. That was such a long time ago. So I remember when I published my first book and it wasn't selling very well, and a lot of that had to do with my launch, which I'm going to talk about in other videos. I just published a book, it was out, and I didn't know how to kind of market, but I knew that I needed to get some readers in front of me. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to start making sales until people started to know about my book and they were buying it, and I was like, how do I bridge that gap? How do I get people to know about my book and to buy it who aren't already my friends and family, right? And so that was really what I was trying to crack. And what I saw a lot of people doing when I was trying to study what other authors were doing, I would see a lot of people posting in Facebook groups, up to 200 a day just to generate a couple of sales, which didn't seem worth the time and energy. I saw a lot of authors jump on these like-for-like swaps, these follow trains, these kind of, I'll support you if you support me, I'll buy your book if you buy mine. I saw a lot of that going on, and then outside of that, I also just saw a lot of people spamming on Twitter and Instagram, just buy my book, it's 99 cents now, it's available now, what are you waiting for? Lots of messaging around that, right? And none of that really felt authentic to me. None of that felt good, none of it felt right. I was like, there has to be a better way than me going out every day and trying to chase people, trying to convince people to buy my book. There has to be a way to just get them to buy from me and already know who I am. And what I was really trying to figure out was how is it that I can walk through, we don't call it a mall here in Australia, but how can I walk through a mall or a shopping center and see, one of my favorite stores that I already have awareness of, go in there, see something I like, buy it, without having to have a single conversation with the salesperson, without them having to come up and scream at me it's 99 cents, buy now, or having to convince oh, I'll do you a favor if you buy my product, right? I was like, how does that happen, right? And that's what I was trying to figure out, especially because I was not seeing your big authors like Sarah J. Maas and Stephen King posting in Facebook groups every day to make their sales. Obviously, they are not doing that. And I know that, you probably look at authors like that and go, well, of course, their publisher's doing the marketing for them, right? I've been with a publisher. Your publisher does not do a lot of marketing for you. Yes, they will get you into the right distributors, right? They'll get you into the right bookstores where you have the opportunity to sell books through those locations, right? And a lot of stuff does go on behind the scenes to kind of generate awareness of your book and hype for your book, but that's exactly it, right? It's that, and then it's also the marketing efforts of the author themselves. Because the thing is, if you think about it, if there's a new book in a bookstore that you have not heard of, how do you know to go buy it? How, what actually motivates you to get up out of your house, go to the bookstore, track down that book in the bookstore and buy it? And a lot of that, if you don't have that awareness up front, then the publishers are just relying on you going into the bookstore, which, by the way, a lot of people don't even do that these days, they buy online. But they're relying on you to get up, go into the bookstore, find it by chance, or even find it on Amazon by chance, just happen to stumble across it, like the cover, pick it up, read the blurb, decide you want to buy it. All these things are steps that you have to take that you may not necessarily take. So a publisher is not going to spend a big budget printing out books and marketing a book just on the off chance that you might do that. There is definitely something else going on behind the scenes that they can rely on so that they know that people are going to go to the bookstore and find that book and buy that book. And I can promise you that just because a new book is out, because new books come out every day, the sales rep is not going to come up to you and go, have you seen that this new book just came out and it is so good and I'm going to sell it to you because it happens to be this author. That doesn't happen. There's so many books that come out, they're not going to put favorites on certain authors, right? And so when you start to understand all this, you realize there's something else that needs to happen that allows you to be able to get readership, to build readership, to attract readership, and to make sales that doesn't have these one-on-one connections going on. And I want to talk to you today about what that is. What if you didn't have to chase readers? What if you could just attract them in? So what do I mean by attracting them in? What I mean is that you, as an author, have a brand that is established that creates product awareness for your books so that people already know it's out, people can hear it, like people are hearing about it, people are talking about it, it's getting known and it's getting seen and it's getting discovered, without you ever having to go up to individuals in a Facebook group and go, buy my book, right? Or spam on your feed, buy my book. Yes, there is marketing actions that you take, but it doesn't look like that. What I realized is that a big part of what goes on here is that these authors have online presence, they have credibility, they have publicity, they have hype. And this is really what actually drives those sales. So the question becomes, how do you do that? As an indie author, as a small author, as an author that's unknown, undiscovered, how do you start to create that same pattern? So a big problem is that we know that things like online presence and hype and publicity and credibility and all of that is what's actually going to translate into book sales. But I still see authors, especially ones that are starting out, that are kind of trying to figure it out by watching what other new authors are doing. What I see is that they ignore all of that and they still put all their time and energy into these tactics of like posting in Facebook groups and you know, doing these like swaps and doing these like favors for other authors in an attempt to sell more books. And yeah, you know what? You might sell maybe, you know, 50 books, maybe even up to 1,000 doing it this way, but it's going to be at the expense of you having to invest so much manual time and labor, and the fact that you don't even have an actual sales process here. All you're doing is talking to people and kind of bargaining that they buy your book in return for you doing something for them, which is not a sustainable sales process at all, right? And the reason this doesn't really work to begin with is that your ideal reader is not other writers. And oftentimes, the people that are showing up in these Facebook groups are other writers trying to promote their book rather than readers looking for books to read. Because readers know that they go on Amazon to find books to read, and they go into bookstores and they like look at other book bloggers and find recommendations that way. Where your audience is actually hanging out, and you have to be doing the right thing to get in front of those people. When you go into these Facebook groups and you talk to other writers and maybe you build a couple of helpful connections, I'm not saying that connecting with other writers is a bad thing. Look, that is very helpful for later down the track when you do need to be collaborating and networking to get visibility around your book. But they're not your ideal readers, they're not your ideal customers, and you don't actually have a sales process here that's leading readers on a continual repeating basis, a consistent basis, from like, it's not leading them from discovering you and your book and not knowing what it is but wanting to know more about it to then purchasing, because you're just kind of pressuring people into buying your book, right? Which is not the same thing. And so it's really important that you do actually put something in place that's going to attract readers to you and is going to convert to sales. So the very first thing that you want to get right is you want to make sure that you're putting out the right content and that it has the right messaging. I'm talking about like your social media posts, your blog posts, your videos, whatever you're doing to build visibility online, to build a presence online, to establish your brand. You want to make sure that it's the right content going out. And I'm going to talk more about that in a second. But pivoting over to messaging as well, the messaging accompanying your content also needs to be really on point, and it really needs to speak to your ideal readers, because if it doesn't, it is not going to convert them. Messaging is not even limited to content, it's actually everything that they ever see from you, right? So this is also any ads that you're running, your website copy that you've got on your website if you have one. It's got to do with your book blurb and the way that that is written. It's got to do with any captions that you put out that accompany any sales post, right? So the way that you're going to nail this is that you, first and foremost, have to know who your ideal reader is. And the big mistake is that a lot of people tend to go really broad. They think, oh, you know, like Harry Potter sold worldwide and everyone loves it, so of course it's possible that my book could also appeal to a worldwide audience and could appeal to a lot of people. And I, as a reader, happen to read romance and fantasy and horror, so why wouldn't other people also like a whole range of genres, right? Like, that is a thing, that is definitely true, right? And I do read a lot of genres myself as a reader. I will definitely read like fantasy and romance and lots of things, right? But specifically, I have very specific reading interests that will get me every time, right? So if anyone comes to me and they say, I have a book that is about royalty, princesses, magic, fairies, even vampires, any of that, especially if it has romance. I really like romance. If it has any of those things, I am way more likely to pick it up. And sometimes I'll see a fantasy book and like, yeah, it's fantasy, so I should like it and I should want to read it. But oftentimes it has a lot of things in it that don't really interest me. Like it might have assassins, or it might have, I don't know, like elves or something, or just like something really random, like a political war that doesn't really interest me, right? And so I don't end up picking it up. You want to get specific about the specific themes, characters, issues, the genre points, the steaminess level, like everything that's going on in there that could possibly bring in the right people. Because the more specific you are, the more you will actually convert sales. Because if you don't get specific enough, if you just say, I have a fantasy book, so does everyone and their dog. What makes yours different? Why would anyone pay attention to yours when there are so many fantasy books to choose from? You have to get specific. You're not going to alienate people. That's how you're going to draw people in, right? And so by you knowing your ideal reader, that allows you to get your messaging right, where you can get really specific about the thing in your blurb that's going to make them go, oh, I want to read this. Or the thing in your caption, like your marketing post, in your videos, your content that's going to make them go, this sounds really good. This sounds like exactly what I want to read, right? And that also helps you tailor your content to be appealing and interesting and entertaining as well. Because a lot of authors will just, again, put out stuff that appeals to other writers, or they will put out just sales posts, and a lot of their content can be quite boring. Or they'll follow very general marketing advice where they try to do a mix of like personal posts and then they'll try and do some book posts. But again, it's not really speaking to why people would want to be interested. It's not really educating them on why someone would want to pick up your book. And then the personal content has no relevance to your author brand. So you really need to make sure that your content and your messaging is on point so that that is converting and naturally attracting in readers. Because the thing is, if people are coming across this content online and they like it and they engage with it and they share it with friends and then they follow you to find out more, that is attracting in ideal readers. That is how that happens, right? Where you didn't go out and chase ideal readers, you didn't go searching for them in a Facebook group. They found you because you put out something that they actually wanted to receive, that they wanted to engage with, that they wanted to consume, and they want to get more of. The second thing is branding and positioning. And this is really, really key. So this is the difference between basically your big authors that you see and then hobbyist authors that are just starting out that maybe talk about writing a lot, but you don't really know what they're writing. You don't know if they have a book coming out. They're not really clear on any of that. They're just like, I write like fantasy, I write romance. People are like, cool, that's great, but I'm gonna go buy some books that are actually available, right? And so it's really important that if you want to be seen as an author, and in that you want to be seen as someone credible, established, trustworthy, someone who knows what they're doing, someone who has invested time and energy into perfecting their craft, you want to be seen as someone who does all of that. So you need to present yourself online in that way. It doesn't mean you have to have like the best graphics and branding out there, but you definitely need to look polished, and you need to have in your bio, like you need to talk about what you do. You need to say you're an author. You need to talk about what your book's about, where people can buy it. Don't be vague, right? Actually position yourself like the author that you want to be. And even if you aren't published yet, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't feel good about calling myself an author before I'm published. The thing is, I don't see it that way, right? I see it as this. You're a writer when you're learning to write, when you're kind of experimenting with it. Maybe you're a hobbyist writer, maybe you do it for fun, right? You're an author when you decide, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to get published. I'm going to work on a serious manuscript. I'm going to put it through editing. I'm going to pay for the cover design. You can call yourself an author because you're doing that seriously and you have intent behind it. And then you're a published author when it's out in market. That's the difference. If you were going to buy a book and someone was basically wanting you to buy their book, right? But they were like, oh, I'm not really an author yet. I'm just like a writer and my book's not even a bestseller yet. And I don't even know if it's that good. And, you can buy it if you want, but it's okay if you don't. Like if they were kind of wishy-washy about it, you would not feel good investing your hard-earned money into a book, especially if you have not read from them before, especially if you've never heard from them. You would be very skeptical to do that when you also have a list of perfectly good books on your TBR to read and many other authors you would rather buy from that you've read before and that you trust, right? The difference is that when you can position yourself and you can say, my upcoming debut is this, and it's about this, and it's going to be available in these bookstores, and you'll like it if you like this. When you can speak with confidence behind what you're doing, that is the difference. That is when people go, that sounds like something I want to get my hands on. And it is really the difference between someone seeing you as a hobbyist writer and seeing you as someone who does this for a living, which is what you want. And now in that as well, there's a lot you can do on your own, but in that, it helps to build some credibility, it helps to build some publicity. So if you can get reviews, if you can present yourself as like, you kind of want to position yourself as an expert in your genre, where if you write romance, you want to tell people why you're so good at writing romance, right? You want to be doing the guest posts that get onto other people's blogs. You want to be teaching that in writing workshops if that feels good to you. You want to be talking about other romance books that you have read and learned from, critiquing other people's work in that genre to show that you actually understand what you're doing and that you are capable of writing a good book. Because if you don't have the reviews and the publicity to back you up, that's the next best thing that you can do. And then of course, getting the reviews and publicity helps too. So that is something that you can do that will help to build that trust piece. Because without that trust piece, again, people do not feel good about putting their hard-earned money into someone that may or may not be a good writer, right? And especially because so many people just throw their books up on Amazon and call it a day. All right, so the last piece of this equation is the actual attraction piece. And so we've talked about a bit of strategy here. We've talked about you actually putting out the right content that's going to draw people in. And we've talked about how you can do that really well. And we've also talked about you taking steps to position yourself well so that your brand works for you. Your brand sells your book for you. Now, the third piece is that you yourself have to hold attractive energy. And so what do I mean by that? I'm going to get a little bit woo-woo on you here. And this is what I see a lot of the time, especially with authors who maybe have been doing this for a while. I know that this can stack up even as soon as like maybe 3 to 5 months in. When you've been trying something for a really long time and it doesn't look like it's working, you can get a bit frustrated, right? It's like, oh, you know, I'm posting every day, I'm trying to track my metrics, I'm trying to grow my following, and it doesn't look like it's working, and I'm still not making sales, and what am I doing wrong? I've been there, so I know what that feels like. And especially if you're like a few years in, it can get even more intense, right? So what I see a lot of people doing is that, again, they get really focused on intention-wise, like, oh, you know, I want to have readers, I want to grow a following because I want to make sales. That's my end goal. And yeah, you're allowed to have that as your end goal. You're allowed to want to make sales and get compensated for your work. I am 100% here for that. But at the same time, that is not the best way to approach readers, right? They're obviously not going to feel good about it if you go, I just want you here because I want to make money off of you. That's not a good feeling for them. So there has to be something else under that that also benefits your readers. That is the intention piece behind what you're doing, right? And I often find the easiest thing here to focus on is community. Like, a lot of authors genuinely want to connect with their readers. They want to have a relationship with them. They want to hear about what their readers thought of their book. They want to get those nice messages from their readers. So community is actually a big piece that resonates with a lot of authors. And community also benefits your readers because they want to feel part of something too. They want to feel part of this book and the community that is with this book. They want to be able to have those conversations about your book with other fellow people reading the book. So building community and having the intention behind building a following that is very specifically a community for your books is actually a really good intention to have and a really good way to back your marketing, right? But with that, energetically, you can't feel resentment when it's not working. A lot of authors get frustrated and then they project that out onto their readers when people aren't buying, and they get really frustrated. It's like, oh my gosh, like, you guys suck. You guys are not buying my book. It's been like 5 months. I keep telling you all the reasons why you should buy it and you don't. And like, that's not what you want to do either, because obviously that's a really terrible thing to do to your readers, and they are going to feel that energy. Even if you never say it to them, they're going to feel that energy in your actions and your words and your intentions of what you're putting out. So you need to make sure you have the right energy behind what you're doing. And again, that's a mindset shift, right? That's about looking at it and feeling gratitude for the fact that maybe you only have 50 people in your following, but that's 50 people who decided to follow you and decided that you were worth paying attention to and worth listening to. And there's a 50 potential sales. And when you start to look at it that way, it starts to shift everything in what you're doing. And you start to look at it like 50 is as good as 5,000. 50 is still something I can do something with, right? And so you start to show up for those people like they are 5,000 people. You start to really deliver for them and give value to them, and you start to really get to know them. And that naturally increases how more people find you and how more people want to interact with you. So your energy and your intentions are also super, super important. And then lastly, I kind of touched on this, it's the experience that you're cultivating with readers. Like, if you want people to be supportive of you, if you want people to be in your audience, if you want people to, you know, engage with you and share your stuff and buy your book and support you in general, where are they getting that from you, right? Like, is it a give and take kind of relationship you have here? What is the experience that they are getting here? What is, like, what benefit, what value are they getting here? And that doesn't mean that, like, you're doing the same thing, that you're going out sharing their posts all the time. But I mean, like, cultivate that community for them. If they have fan art that they have created for your book, share it. Like, share it on your platform. Show your appreciation for them. Show your appreciation when you hit a sales milestone and go, wow, this was all you guys. I am so grateful for you guys, right? Like, help them feel part of it. Help them feel like they are appreciated, seen, and recognized, because that's how they're going to also feel supported in them supporting you, right? And that is where that's really going to come into play, because no one wants to feel like it's one-sided. No one wants to feel like they're in a relationship that is like all take and no give, or all give and no take, right? So that is basically what I have to say about that. And all these like little pieces here at the end is what helps you as a person to become magnetic for readers as well. So that is everything that I wanted to share today. I hope you found this really helpful. Let me know if you got something out of it below. I tried to share some strategy and some mindset here. If you want to know more about what I do or ways that you can get more support from me, check out the description box down below. I have all the links to like my websites and everything, but I also have some freebies listed down below. I always have freebies in the description box, and they will be there to help you kind of take some next steps with this as well. I have a class listed down below that is a paid class, but it does help you take everything we talked about today a step further. So I have that listed down below if you are interested in checking that out as well. Of course, there's no pressure. I just wanted to let you know it was there in case you found this helpful and were like, I need more of this. So that is there as well. That is all from me today, and I will see you guys in the next video. Okay.